More than 7,000 nurses have decided to go on strike in the New York area. They're standing up for better patient care. I want to address what's going on here. Now, this was not the story that I expected to see this morning because last night we saw reports that the negotiations were going fairly well. However, things broke down in the middle of the night, and here we are. The hospitals impacted are Mount Sinai's main hospital in Harlem, the Montefiore Medical Center in the Bronx, and the Children's Hospital at Montefiore. We also know that this is going to impact Wheeler, Moses, and the Westchester Squares campuses. Now, again, this was not what we were expecting to see this morning. Things were supposed to go fairly well. However, that's not the case. We are now seeing stories that every single media outlet is covering this. This is a big, big worry. Now, the New York State Nurses Association, they announced a plan to strike more than a month ago. But the union and the hospital administration, they attempted to come to a contract agreement. However, late last night, things broke down. And even on, I believe it was Sunday, Governor Kathy Hochul's office, they attempted to prevent a strike. As the governor's office, they understand how difficult it's going to be on patients, but also the community. Now, what you need to understand about this is that the nurses are fighting for a couple of things. First, they want to see a wage increase. They're going to fight for that 19.1% compound wage increase. But that wasn't it. What wasn't agreed upon, because that was the first thing that was agreed upon, what wasn't agreed upon was staffing. There are staffing shortages all over the place. And the union stated that there's too many staffing shortages and they're not able to keep the high standards for their patients. Now, according to the New York State Nursing Association, the president, she says that the Montefiore Center has more than 760 nursing vacancies. Now, this actually adds more pressure to the existing nurses to take on more patients, and that's what the nurses are fighting for. When you see the signs that say, "I'm tired," look at this. I'm tired, right? On strike for better patient care. On strike for better patient care. Patients over profits. You see those. There's a reason. Some of these nurses are exhausted. They've been doing this for about 3 years. They've had a high number of patients, but they're losing nurses. Now, here's what is being said. This is going to add more pressure to nurses. But lately, the emergency department just over at the Montefiore hospitals, the emergency department is normally responsible for about 3 patients. This is their standard, 3 patients. However, lately they've been responsible for 20 patients. Yeah, 20 patients, not 3, 20. This is why nurses are exhausted. And I know a handful of nurses here in Washington State, and a lot of them are saying the same thing. There's a shortage. They're constantly being called in. They never work just 40 hours. They're always working more simply because there's not enough nurses. Again, it's a lot of it has to do with what has happened over the past 3 years. Now, the hospitals in New York, they do have a contingency plan, and they've had this in place. Currently, they are attempting to bring in more traveling nurses. However, this is going to take a little bit of time, but they've started this before. They didn't just start this this morning. They started this before. They're also moving patients to different hospitals while they bring in more nurses to take care of them. Mount Sinai actually began transferring infants in the neonatal intensive care unit last week, and many hospitals simply postponed elective procedures earlier this month in preparation for a potential strike. So there are things that are happening. Now, I do want to say one thing. This is happening in New York, okay? This is happening at the Montefiore Medical Centers and Mount Sinai. However, this is not the only time we have seen this. We have seen a lot of the issues regarding a potential strike, especially in 2022. I think 4 out of the 12 potential strikes came from nurses. Yeah, across the country. So this isn't a one-time thing. This isn't just isolated incidents in New York. This is all across the country. Now, finally, I emailed back and forth with a nurse, this weekend, and she said that her and her coworkers were prepared to go on strike. She said that the union backed them 100%, and even though a strike will have a lasting impact on their communities, they say that this is the best course of action at this time. Now, why is this? Well, she actually stated that her and her coworkers have discussed leaving the hospitals altogether due to the increased workload. But this is how we got here in the first place. The past 3 years made it very difficult for nurses. Some nurses didn't want to go into the hospitals. Some were told to leave because they didn't get the shot, right? And so this is kind of the bed that we made. And now they got to lay in it. That a lot of the hospitals and clinics around the country, they made it difficult for workers. And because of that, now we have a worker shortage. Because of that, now nurses are just going to go on strike because they are tired and they want to improve patient care. Now, here's the thing. I don't know where this goes. I don't know. I didn't want to, honestly, I didn't expect to wake up this morning and see these stories. That nurses go on strike at 2 big New York hospitals. Thousands of nurses strike across New York City in push for higher staffing levels. And 7,000 nurses at 2 New York City hospitals on strike as contract negotiations fail. Every single large media outlet is covering this story. Honestly, there was nothing about this last night. Yesterday, nothing about nurses going on strike. Why? Because everybody expected they were going to reach a deal. They're going to come to an agreement. However, it didn't happen. So, we're going to see what happens moving forward. What I can tell you is that this is going to create some bigger issues across the country. Because what we saw ever since the potential railroad strike is that more workers, more unionized workers were talking about going on strike to improve their quality of life, to increase their wages, and just improve working conditions. So we're going to see what happens moving forward, but this is a big, big story, and we need to stay on top of it. Again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.